Imagine walking along a beach and finding a single tooth. Not a small shark tooth like you might picture, but one the size of your hand, heavier than a brick, with edges still sharp enough to cut. That tooth belonged to the largest predatory shark that has ever existed. A creature up to 18 meters long, 3 times the length of a great white, with a bite powerful enough to crush a car. For around 20 million years, it ruled every ocean on Earth, with nothing big enough to challenge it. And then, around 3.5 million years ago, it vanished. The question that has haunted scientists ever since is simple. How does the most powerful predator the ocean has ever produced just disappear? Today, we find out what really killed the Megalodon. First, the scale, because it is almost impossible to picture. The Megalodon, its name literally means big tooth, grew to somewhere between 15 and 18 meters long and may have weighed more than 50 tons. Its jaws could open nearly 3 meters wide enough to swallow a person whole without coming close to touching the sides. And its bite force is estimated at over 40,000 pounds, among the most powerful bites of any animal that has ever lived. More than 10 times stronger than a great white. Strong enough to bite straight through the bones of a whale. We know almost all of this from one thing: teeth. Sharks don't have true bones. Their skeletons are made of cartilage, which rarely fossilizes. So, for the most part, all the Megalodon left behind were its teeth. But what teeth they are! Some are over 18 centimeters long, the largest of any shark ever. Place a great white's tooth next to a Megalodon's, and the great white's looks almost like a toy. That single comparison is what first told scientists they were dealing with something on a completely different scale. And it used those teeth on the biggest prey in the sea. The Megalodon hunted whales. Fossil whale bones have been found with Megalodon bite marks gouged deep into them, and some even show healed wounds, meaning the whale survived an attack at least once. Scientists believe the Megalodon may have targeted the fins and tail first, crippling its prey so it couldn't escape, before moving in for the kill. To fuel a body that enormous, it had to eat enormous amounts, and the warm, shallow seas of its time were full of exactly the slow, fat-rich marine mammals it needed. For roughly 20 million years, this was the apex predator of planet Earth. Not the apex predator of a region, the apex predator, full stop. It lived in oceans all over the world, from warm coastlines to the open sea, and it had no natural enemies. Nothing hunted the Megalodon. It sat, completely unchallenged, at the very top of the food chain for a span of time almost impossible to comprehend. And that is exactly what makes its disappearance so strange. Animals like that do not usually just vanish. So what changed? Around 3.5 to 4 million years ago, the world began to change. And the changes stacked up against the Megalodon, one by one. The first was the climate. The planet was cooling, sliding toward a long series of ice ages. Huge amounts of water became locked up in growing ice caps. Sea levels dropped, and the warm, shallow coastal seas the Megalodon depended on, the same seas where it likely raised its young, began to shrink and disappear. The Megalodon was almost certainly a warm water animal. As the oceans cooled, its entire world was closing in around it. Then there was the food. As the climate shifted, many of the whale species the Megalodon hunted either died out or migrated toward the cold polar waters the Megalodon may not have been able to follow them into. Its enormous body needed an enormous, reliable food supply, and that supply was draining away. A predator that big has very little room for error. When the prey moves and you cannot follow it, you starve. And finally, it was no longer alone. As the Megalodon's world shrank, smaller, faster, more adaptable predators were rising. The great white shark, agile, efficient, able to thrive in cooler water, was spreading through the same hunting grounds and competing for the same shrinking prey. And the ancestors of the orca, the killer whale, were becoming smarter, faster, pack hunters. There is even evidence that these rising predators may have fed on young megalodons, attacking the nurseries before the giants could grow up. The king was being squeezed from every side at once, too big, too specialized, too slow to adapt. No single one of these would have been enough on its own. But together, a cooling planet, vanishing shallow seas, disappearing prey, and a new generation of leaner, smarter competitors, they formed a trap the Megalodon could not escape. The very things that made it the most fearsome predator on Earth, its colossal size, its appetite, its need for warm, prey-rich water, became the exact reasons it could not survive a changing world. Around 3.5 million years ago, the largest shark that ever lived slipped quietly into extinction. Which brings us to the question everyone secretly wants to ask. Could it still be down there? The ocean is deep and mostly unexplored. Couldn't a megalodon be hiding somewhere in the abyss? It is a thrilling idea, but the answer almost certainly is no. The megalodon was a warm-water hunter of surface-dwelling prey, not a deep-sea creature. It could not simply move into the crushing cold of the deep and survive. An animal that size would need to eat constantly and would leave obvious signs, fresh bite marks on whales, sightings, washed-up remains. We find none of it. The Megalodon left a clear fossil record for 20 million years, and then that record simply stops. It is gone. Truly gone. But its story leaves us with something worth remembering. The Megalodon was not killed by a bigger monster. It was killed by change, by a world that cooled and shifted faster than a giant could adapt to. The most powerful predator the ocean ever produced was brought down not by force, but by a changing climate and a shrinking supply of food. And there is, perhaps, a quiet warning in that. The ocean is changing again today, faster than it has in millions of years. If it could erase something as unstoppable as the Megalodon, it is worth asking what else it could change. If you want to keep descending with us into the deep, subscribe, and we will see you on the next dive.